Hi everyone, thanks for checking out the latest video forecast. I'm forecasting underneath the kitchens. Let's look at the weather headlines. We have severe thunderstorms possible today from the Central Plains into the lower Great Lakes. The heat continues across the Pacific Northwest, and it's going to be building from the plains into the Ohio Valley, even into the Northeast throughout the rest of the week. So looking at some pretty hot temperatures through this area. And also we're going to be looking at showers and storms today. For the rest of this afternoon across portions of the Central Rockies. This is actually the remnants of what was once Hurricane Blanca, which has now moved into the southwest portion of the country, and we are seeing the remnants of that system bringing rain and some thunderstorms across portions of the Rockies today. And let's look at the flash flood warnings, or watches I should say, that we have in place across portions of the western part of the country here. We have flash flood watches across portions of eastern California and into much of Nevada, and also into portions of Utah and Colorado. Also seeing those flash flood watches in place throughout the rest of the day today, and also watching the area from Wyoming and into southern Montana, even to western parts of South Dakota, where we do have a flash flood watch in place. Could see some locally heavy rainfall throughout the rest of the day today, and also even into tomorrow as well across the plains, and I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Let's go back to the slides here and look at the severe weather threat from the Storm Prediction Center. The Storm Prediction Center outlook for the rest of this afternoon. You can see we do have a slight risk of severe storms in place across portions of the Central Plains here, stretching into the southern Great Lakes, and you can see here the main threats today look to be damaging winds and large hail. There will also be a small tornado threat, mainly across the southern edge of the Lake Erie and Lake Ontario here, across Buffalo, New York, and even into Cleveland, Ohio. These areas will have the greatest chance for maybe a brief spin-up, a brief tornado. And of course, we have some decent wind fields, especially over portions of northeast Ohio and into upstate New York. We have decent wind fields in place, so that will enhance the threat for some damaging winds later on this evening as this line of storms comes through. We have a low pressure system that's the culprit for these storms today. Low pressure working through Ontario, Canada here, and a front that's draping down across portions of the Central Plains and into the southern Great Lakes. And that front's going to be the added lift in the atmosphere for those storms to develop throughout the rest of the afternoon and even into the evening. Let's time out these storms here. I'm using the high resolution rapid refresh model. I put several different graphics here. This is for 3 o'clock Central Time this afternoon. You can see some spotty thunderstorms here across portions of northern Missouri, southern Iowa, even storms developing into northern Indiana and Illinois along this boundary. And you notice as we get into 4 o'clock, storms really become more organized here. And also, you will notice storms here across Nebraska as well. That's also an area under that severe weather threat for today. And storms really blossoming here across portions of Missouri, into northern Illinois, and even into Indiana as well. Then you can especially see this by 5 o'clock. Storms continuing to develop and push southward as we head into that 5 and 6 o'clock hour this evening. Also, don't want to leave the southern Great Lakes out either here for this evening, as this area will also be under that threat for severe storms. Here's a look at the forecasted model forecast by 4 o'clock Eastern Time. You can see some scattered storms across portions of the northern portions of Illinois and Indiana, and also across portions of upstate New York here and into northern parts of Pennsylvania. Some scattered showers and storms initially pushing through, but notice as we get later on into this evening, this is the map by 10 o'clock Eastern Time. So a few storms possible here across northern Indiana and Ohio, but especially we're going to be watching parts of the southern Great Lakes here from upstate New York, areas like Buffalo and Cleveland. Those areas we could see a line of storms coming through. And here's the map by midnight. You can see the model depicting a line of storms pushing through upstate New York as this boundary shifts southward. Again, main threats with this thunderstorm activity this evening will be damaging winds and large hail. We have some decent wind fields aloft, and also can't rule out an isolated tornado as well with these storms this evening. So be sure to stay tuned to your local forecast and make sure you heed all of those severe weather warnings that come out this evening with these storms. Now, as we head into tomorrow, we are going to continue to see this severe weather threat really in a lot of the same areas that are getting hit today with that threat. We're going to have a decent area of low pressure pushing through, a decent system pushing through the central part of the country, a lot of moist air. In fact, some of this moisture actually coming from the remnants of Blanca, along with the moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico as well. We have a slight risk of severe storms in place tomorrow from eastern portions of Colorado, This stretches through much of Kansas, and this goes up into portions of Iowa, Missouri, and northern parts of Illinois, Indiana, and into southern Michigan and Wisconsin as well. Main threats tomorrow, we're going to see damaging winds possible with these storms, a large hail, some colder air aloft, and we cannot rule out completely an isolated tornado as well. So be sure to be weather aware in these areas for tomorrow, as we have this decent system pushing through, plenty of moisture in place as well. Heading into Friday, we're going to still see a threat for severe storms. Now, as we get closer, I think we may see some of these areas upgraded to a slight risk, but for now, the Storm Prediction Center has put out a marginal threat. One area here across portions of western Texas and going into western and central portions of Oklahoma and far southern portions of Kansas. You'll also see an area here across a good part of Illinois and much of central and northern Indiana, and even into Michigan and Ohio and upstate New York as well. Going to have a marginal threat for severe storms on Friday, as we see this area of low pressure continuing to push eastward. We're going to see plenty of moisture pushing northward, and main threats on Friday will certainly be damaging winds, and can't rule out an isolated tornado as well. And looking at the rainfall potential through Saturday morning, not only are we talking about the potential for severe storms, we've got to watch the heavy rain and flooding potential in this area as well. As this decent area of low pressure pushes through tomorrow into Friday, we're going to see some very heavy rainfall, it looks like, across portions of the plains into the Midwest here. Check out these totals through Saturday morning. We're talking 2, 3, 4 inches of rain possible in some of these areas from central Oklahoma and into southern Kansas. Also really watching this area here from eastern Nebraska through northern Iowa here, central northern Iowa, and through southern Minnesota and Wisconsin. You guys can see over 4 inches of rainfall, especially from tomorrow into Friday. That's when that area of low pressure moves through. You guys can see some very heavy rainfall. Some flash flooding will definitely be a concern as well. We're going to have a lot of moisture in the atmosphere to support some very heavy rainfall in these areas, and you can see the potential for some heavy rain even extends into portions of central and southern Ontario as well. Now, looking at the pattern as we get into the weekend and next week, I'm going to shift here and show you the GFS computer model. I'm going to show you the upper level pattern setting up from this weekend and into next week. One thing we're watching here is a ridge. It's going to be building and developing. We're going to begin to see this ridge building as we get into the weekend. This is the GFS 500 millibar geopotential heights, and what you're going to notice here as we get into Saturday, even into Sunday, we have a ridge really beginning to show up here across the central and eastern part of the country. This is a 591 millibar high. That's 591 thickness here, showing up, I should say, across portions of the southeast portion of the country. And heading into Sunday, notice how the ridge really begins to build here across portions of the south as we see very strong heights developing here. And even as we head into next week, we're going to see this high really building and taking over here across the southern part of the country. This will really be the pattern as we go through next week. We're going to see this ridge really building and continuing to remain in place across the southern U.S. This is going to help to suppress shower and thunderstorm activity in this area for a good part of next week for the areas directly under that high. But areas around the high, we're going to see what we call a ring of fire pattern, where we see rounds of showers and probably some decent thunderstorm clusters coming through here on the edges of this high through the plains and into the portions of the Great Lakes. This will really be the area where we could see some heavy rain. That's really where the stormy setup will be taking place as we head into next week. And notice this pattern really does stay in place as we get into Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. There's 591 millibar or 591 thickness here across the southeast part of the country. So we're looking at a lot of hot temperatures across this area, and it will also help to suppress storm chances through this area, but continuing to see the storms on the northern and edges of this high here as we head into later next week and even into next weekend. This ridge continues to stay in place across this area, and gradually in time, I think it'll begin to build westward again across portions of the plains as we get maybe towards, say, Father's Day weekend. Let's go back to the PowerPoint here, and I'm going to show you the 6 to 10 day outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. The ridge shows up really well just looking at the temperature pattern. Next week you can clearly see that we're going to have high probabilities of above average temperatures across portions of the south, and really a good part of the eastern part of the U.S. is going to see a lot of hot weather next week as we see good probabilities here, decent chances of seeing temperatures well above average across this area. And also, looking at the precipitation outlook, you can notice this as well. We're going to have this ridge developing across the south. That's going to help to suppress storm chances across this area. But also notice on the edges of the high, we're going to see potential for quite a bit of precipitation. Above average precipitation is likely over the next 6 to 10 days across portions of the southern plains, and this will stretch up into the Ohio Valley and even into the northeast mid-Atlantic potentially as well. That's where the stormy setup will really be taking shape. And I also posted the GFS precipitation accumulation through hour 198. You're going to really see where the ridge sets up here across the south next week. You notice the lack of precipitation here across portions of the Tennessee Valley, but also notice where the train of moisture will really be developing from portions of Texas and all the way up through the central plains here. This will go up into the Great Lakes as well. That's really the region, the area where we're going to be watching for rounds of showers and storms next week. And also, we have another cyclone that's formation here in the Eastern Pacific. The Eastern Pacific has been extremely active. As you all know, we just had Blanca recently, late last week and into the weekend that everybody was talking about. And now we're looking at a potential for another system in the same region that that Blanca formed here across portions of the Eastern Pacific, here just south of Mexico. We have a 90% chance of this system developing into a tropical cyclone. And as we head into the next several days, it looks like as the system develops, it will likely make a push directly northward into southern Mexico. So if you have travel plans down there, vacationing, or just family down there, just be aware that it looks like the system will be moving due north into Mexico as we head towards the weekend. And the water temperatures here, where the system is developing, the water temperatures here are in the upper 80s. So we have very, very warm water, and it really looks like this is going to be developing into a tropical storm probably over the next 24 to 48 hours. So definitely something to keep in mind here. And that's about all I have for this video forecast. Hope you all have a great day, and thanks for watching.